that our colleague Sunita has already done. Following Peter's presentation, we are going to move on to our respondents. And so we are going to have time to hear from a diversity of voices. We'll hear from Reverend White. We're going to hear from our colleague, Reverend Dr. Chakravarti Zeta, who has come all the way from Wisconsin and who has been instrumental with the National Council of Churches in passing resolutions on religious nationalism as well as on Hindu nationalism. And is also an American Baptist pastor who's familiar very much with Chicago. Jay Ramiro, and where's Jay at? There's Jay, and Jay is a student, so he's always tired. He's got to be. He is a graduate student at the University of Chicago Divinity School. He's also a healthcare professional, and he is a faithful United Methodist. We are grateful. He is going to share with us his perspective on free speech on college campuses and what's happening when it comes to really speaking truthfully. I'd say truth to power, but speaking truthfully in academic settings today and what students are facing based on his own personal experience at the University of Chicago. Then we're going to hear from Carrie, and I'm eager to hear how Carrie is processing some of this conversation. Carrie serves as the Christian Education Director here at Gary United Methodist Church. And then finally from our colleague and now good friend, new friend, Gausia Wajid, who is the chapter president for the Indian American Muslim Council. IAMC is a partner with TRNP and Hindus for Human Rights, and we are grateful for her and for her leadership in organizing Muslims and building relationships between Christians and Jews and other Muslims as we work around the issues of religious nationalism, freedom, human rights, in all of its complexity. So we're grateful to Gausia for that. And we will have time for questions from the floor and a couple of action items. And I know Paula has one on Palestine she wants to really put out there. So let's just go around the room really quickly. If you could just share your name and where you're from, and then I'm turning it over to Sherry. Already got introduction. Would you go?
Can we give a mic, pass the mic?
Yeah.
Because I want to pick it up.
You want to pick it up? Okay.
Is it hot?
Yeah, I know. Is it hot? Thank you, Sherry.
It is. Hi there, I'm Kathy Bender. I live in Carroll Stream, and I am a member of the congregation at Chaim in Lombard. I'm Jewish. I'm also the regional coordinator for the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom here in the Chicagoland area, bringing Jewish and Muslim women together. And I am a grassroots organizer for Standing Together, Illinois Friends of Standing Together, which is supporting Israelis and Palestinians working together on the ground to bring peace.
Thank you for being here.
Great.
More than one sentence, I apologize.
It's okay.
Hi, my name is Nadir Mirza. I'm the Carroll Stream resident, and I heard about this event from my friend and neighbor Kathy. So I just wanted to join in and listen in and see how I can help out.
Thank you.
you.
And your faith.
And I'm Muslim by faith.
There you go.
Hi everyone, my name is Masuma Razvi. I'm also neighbors and friends with Kathy, and this is my husband Nader. So obviously I live in Carroll Stream, and I'm not part of any particular organization, but I'm looking forward to being involved in a lot of the initiatives and here to learn more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Gausia Wajid, and just as Neil mentioned, that I am a Chicago chapter president for IAMC, Indian American Muslim Council, and we just want to be here to support or answer any questions that you may have. And I'm a Naperville resident. It was a drive, but it was worth it.
My name is Asad Poshal. I'm Muslim. I live in Wheaton, probably walking distance here. So by profession, I was a CPA, but I now do curriculum design, and I work with the International Museum of Muslim Cultures in Jackson, Mississippi, and train people of all faiths. And we train both business sector, character, as well as religious leaders of all faiths.
I'm Glenn Priest. I'm a retired United Methodist pastor, and I'm the president of the Naperville Interfaith Leaders Association.
I'm Steve Novy, and I'm United Methodist. I'm a member here at Gary. I serve here as a lay servant, and I ride the coattails of lots of good folks in this room.
I'm Judy Grody, and I'm a member here at Gary Church.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Brian Hendricks, I live in West Chicago. I'm a member of New Hope United Methodist Church there. And I
Thank
work
you.
for the homeless, but I'm very concerned about Christian nationalism. So.
Excellent, thank you for coming.
I'm Christy Hainline. I'm a member of Gary United Methodist Church, and I'm quite interested and excited about hearing what ideas we might come up with to change things.
I'm David Hainline. I'm also a member of Gary United Methodist Church, and I'm from Wheaton, and that's my life.
There you go.
I'm Mary Landreth. I'm a member of Gary Methodist Church.
I'm Holly
Hi,
Kublat, I'm a member of Gary Methodist Church.
Thank you.
I'm Paula Roderick, and Neil sort of introduced me, but I have to say, the last time I was here at Gary, and Chris, correct me, I think Jim Winkler was the speaker.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a while
It's
ago.
a while
but
back.
Gary has always been very, very welcoming, and so thank you very much. And I was last on a bus with Steve going down to Springfield and given, am I allowed to say this raised him some hell?
Trouble.
Help yourself.
Hi everyone, so I am Jay Romero. I am getting my master's in divinity at the University of Chicago. I currently live in Hyde Park, but I grew up in Plainfield, Illinois, so not too far from here.
I'm Suzanne Weibel, I'm a member of Gary Church.
I'm Dan Weibel, also from Gary Church, and I'm humbled to be in this group of amazing people.
I'm Carl Giesel, also Gary Church. I have no affiliation with any of the interfaith organizations, but I do have an affiliation with a tiny little group that we have formed called Democracy in Action, which is, as it says, people who care.
We have a mic right here. We've got one there. We've got our own microphone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Reverend Dwight Stewart, retired United Methodist clergy, and very, very, very good friend of our distinguished senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Christopher Pearson. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
And I also serve as the chairperson of our church and society committee here at Gary, and I just quickly want to thank all the members of the committee for their work tonight, and I'm just happy to be here to learn. I don't have to use my pictures.
I'm gonna switch out my.
I don't think it's okay.
I'm Alan Reed, and I'm a member of Gary Church. We live in Warrenville. I'm on the Church and Society Committee.
I'm Ellen Reed, and I'm an Episcopalian converted to Methodism.
Okay.
A member of Gary, and I lived there 47 years.
I'm Carol Barnes. I live in Wheaton, and I'm a member of Gary. And I also serve on the committee of Church and Society.
And I apologize because I did not introduce another presenter who has come all the way from Chicago on this way down south side. I mean, so it's a long trip, and so
I
want
was
to
a little bit worried for a second there, but hi everyone, my name is Rishabh Chatty. A little bit about me, I'm an MPP candidate at the University of Chicago, so nice to see you here as well. I am the Chicago chapter lead and co-founder of Hindus for Human Rights, and also a research fellow with the South Asian American Coalition to Renew Democracy.
I'm Michelle Sweeney. I'm a member of Gary Church, and also been working as a steering committee member of Bridge, which is Building Relationships in Diverse Groups for Equity, and it's an inter-religious alliance for social justice and racial justice.
Thank you for being.
Thank you. I'm Chris Pearson, senior pastor here at Gary United Methodist Church. My apologies for being a little bit late. We had a town hall meeting with our Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, focusing on Citizen United over at St. Matthew UCC Church, and I wanted to be there to support her as a lifelong United Methodist, a layperson, and just glad to be here. And I just want to take a moment to thank not only Dwight, but Carrie Williams-Bebar, without her, this night would not be possible. And so I want to really thank her as our Director of Christian Education. And so before the night goes any further, if we could give her a hand. And I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Gene Green.
I'm Gene Green, Professor Emeritus of New Testament, which means that when August comes, I don't have to look forward to grading papers anymore, which is just so joyous. I'm a member of Gary United Methodist Church, serve on Church and Society meeting committee, and coming up at the end of October or beginning of November, we're going to be doing our adult education time here, a 4-week session on Christian nationalism, and then we're going to capstone with a special meeting with Matthew Taylor, who wrote the book, The Violent Take It by Force.
And I'm Carrie Williams-Bebar. I'm the Director of Christian Education here. I'm also a student, MDiv student at Garrett, so I will be writing those papers. You don't have to grade. And I'm grateful to be here, and I'm going to pass 2 microphones to the good Reverend
Okay,
Cook and
beautiful.
Christy.
And we're gonna pass it over to Sherry. There you go.
Thank you.
I'm Peter Cook again, principal of the Religious Nationalism Project and the executive director of the New York State Council of Churches. I had my first pastorate in Waukegan, Illinois, and I'm a United Church of Christ pastor, and served pastorates in Framingham, Massachusetts, and Burlington, Vermont, before holding this job the last 9 years.
Great. I'll hold on to it in case you need it. Or in case it's up to you.
Oh.
Unless we pass it, it's up to you.
Okay. So I want to say a little more about me because there's something I'm really excited about that I want to share with everybody. But first, it sounds like you all understand what you have in Cary. In our planning meeting, I just have to say this. In our planning meetings, and we've had a few places, but I think I asked Paula, I was like, who is this? You know, the details. check. I was really impressed. Okay, I'll stop embarrassing you, but it's pretty awesome. So, I taught American politics, you know, intro, media and politics, the presidency, many things in that vein. But one of the things that I've always been interested in terms of, in a scholarly way and in terms of sharing with people, is nonviolence. And a particular strand of it that I come out of is what we call Kingian nonviolence. So the nonviolence as it was practiced in the American South around the time I was born. That's how my parents met each other. One of the things about what we're doing is that for me, this has reinforced once again how small the world is. I have a colleague in teaching nonviolence who was in Gaza because she grew up in Gaza when all of this started. So there's that small world story. But also we had a speaker yesterday who reminded me how close American nonviolence is to nonviolence as was practiced in India until Gandhi was assassinated. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Jim Lawson is kind of the person credited with bringing the nonviolence to the States. But there were so many people. Howard Thurman went to India as well. Mordecai Johnson, the president of Howard University at that time, went to India also. And he came back and had this kind of low-key campaign to let other people know, like, we gotta figure out what they're doing there because we're in pursuit of justice too. So my teaching / facilitating and aren't the best teachers facilitators. This creating containers for younger people usually, but not necessarily always, to discover new things. So gradually, my focus has narrowed to nonviolence, difficult conversations, how can we nonviolently communicate with one another. So that's a big part of what I do lately. And the thing that I'm really excited about is, since mid-May, some of my various collaborators and I have been teaching a workshop or holding a workshop about non-cooperation. And we look at cases where backsliding democracies have been forced by their people to make a U-turn. So this is really exciting for me. It's really heartening for people. And if that's something you all are interested in, you know, that's what I do for fun. Just talk to me about it. So my main business with you right now is and I'll be using this, Peter, for a long, long time. This is such a good way to put this. Peter, when we were talking about this, used the phrase collective covenant. So what are our understandings and agreements about how we're going to proceed in this discussion this evening? And I just feel really, really relaxed. I could be wrong, but everybody seems very genial, and I think we're gonna have a good time and a really productive space. And I'm guessing some of you all have done exercises like this before. So if you would help me with some of your favorite items to put on a list of understandings that you think we should have. Just start calling them out. And if anybody has questions about some of, something that someone says, we can address that.
Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
Okay, so we should be eternally vigilant? Okay, I'll try to make sure that I'm always paying attention. That's really good, and it slides into listening. Listening.
Speak from personal experience.
That's a good one.
Listen to understand and not respond.
That's a great one. And while we're on listening, we're listening this evening not to solve, but to understand. Listening for understanding. Keep them coming. Anybody else? This will speak from your own experience. Favor I statements.
Building capacity for effective action.
Having as a goal. Okay, I think that'll be a good result if we get these little parts down. So we are building, that's kind of an overarching one. We're gonna be building capacity. Cool. Others, yes?
Would that not be done through bonding together in firm connections that are long-lasting?
Yeah, sure. And so this makes this conversation possible and fluid, and hopefully many more to come. So let's stay kind of specific. What specific kinds of things need to happen or not happen this evening as we talk with each other? There's one of you.
I was gonna say maybe the concept of brotherhood or sisterhood, because we need to understand that we have
a lot more in common as human beings rather than things that, differentiate us. And I think we tend to forget that with our face or the color of our skin, race, etc.
There's an
Man.
element of respect in that too.
Yeah,
Respect.
Yep.
Remember, we're family. That one almost made me cry. Because my father used to always say, from the words, our Father. That's, the Almighty made us family by those two words. We remember we're family. So that's a Christian moment of mine. I have others. Remember,
Did we say?
wait, what was the last one? Remember we're family? Respect. Thank you. Respect. So respect, we can expand that to something that people often call one mic, which is we're not gonna talk over each other. There's step up, step back. Anybody know what that one is?
Avoiding leads of abstraction.
Yes. Keep an open mind. Don't assume you know what someone is saying, about to say, Okay, so step up, step back. What might that one be about? This is an important one. This is really important for me.
Say what you have to say and then be done.
Well, that's a good one.
Allow space.
Yeah, and that's getting at it as well. Paula?
I was gonna say, cause I have a motor mouth, and I will grab that mic and I will wanna take that mic and just kick it. So, that's stepping up, but
What's
some
the
of
other side?
to step back and just say, okay, I can pass this off.
Right, so those of us who
Thank you.
are sure that we have valuable things to say in whatever conversation, need to be conscious of the need to rein it in, and the Holy Spirit, or however you want to think about it, can move through any of us at any time. And there are people who just put themselves in a habit of not saying much, but we might need to hear what you have to say. So if you're that person, step up. We wanna this to be as rich a conversation as possible. And the people who are quiet and thinking, we might really need to hear from them. So,
But also step up when you believe something deeply.
absolutely.
Step back when you're hearing something from someone else that you may not believe. You have to step back.
Well, this is true, especially if we remember the context that we're not trying to solve, we're just listening. So yes, if you have another point of view, we want to hear it, but it's not, as one of my professors at the University of Chicago used to say about his workshop, it's verbal combat. We're not doing that. And then this was joyful for him, but but yes, so stepping up, stepping back. Any others?
Waste, W-A-I-S-T, why am I still talking?
That's true. Does that help you to repeat yourself? Yeah. I've never heard that one. That one's gonna have legs too.
Reaffirming listening, so like restating what you've heard to the other person, so that you make sure you understood.
That's a good one. Especially where there seems to be confusion. If there are times we need to do that. Restate for clarity. Okay.
Ask questions with curiosity and not judgment.
Thanks for that one. You all are working through my list, which is great.
Speak from facts, not opinions.
Well, certainly don't express non-facts as if they are. Be factual when presenting. So I have a couple more and we can certainly keep going. One that was added a couple of nights ago. This was a new one for me. But part of it is because I'm just mushy anyway. But someone suggested that we add, don't minimize your own emotions, other people's emotions. Acknowledge what people are feeling. And this is not closed, you know, if someone thinks of another that should be up here, this is our list, you know, we can.
There's one more that I think got added in one of ours, which is, how do we say it? To recognize that we maybe come from different cultural or ethnic or religious perspectives, and to respect differences.
Mm-hmm.
In the same tone as the emotional one, respecting the space that somebody else is coming from, because some people are logical, and some people are emotional, and some people are spiritual. There's different quadrants, so listening with understanding for where the space is that they're coming from with information shared.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation because of the things you all are adding. So the last two certainly covered, you know, I have this experience. I have a terminal degree from a elite university, and I prefer sometimes to talk like my people from the Mississippi Delta. It's a choice, it's a conscious choice, and I think it expresses the brilliance and creativity of the communities that I've come from, and I'm not trying to lose that. So hopefully we'll have time, we have a panel, but hopefully we'll have some time to chop it up, you know, toward the end of the program. And I want us to just take an attitude of being explorers. Instead of deferring to Peter and Neil, ask your questions, you know, don't be afraid that that'll be, you know, problematic, whatever you want to know, just ask freely. I think we've exhausted my list. Any more? One more? No?
We gotta move, we're good.
Okay,
These are
great. Cool. Peter.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So as I said, I'm Peter Cook. I'm a principal with the Religious Nationalisms Project along with Neil Christie. And I want to begin by saying that religious nationalism threatens democracy by distorting religion to serve authoritarian agendas. When governments misuse religion to justify discrimination and violence, both religious freedom and human dignity are at risk. The Religious Nationalisms Project responds by fostering cross-faith dialogue, examining how religious nationalism operates across traditions and regions. We build relationships among communities impacted by rising authoritarianism and equip them to defend democracy, human rights, and pluralism. And so when you ask what is religious nationalisms, or what are religious nationalisms, please remember that we are talking about any government which seeks to adopt a religion, twist that religion, and weaponize it against religious minorities. Religious nationalism is also used as a tool to discriminate against people who are practitioners of the same faith adopted by the government. For example, when Bishop Buddy drew on her Christian principles to criticize the president's Christian nationalism at the National Cathedral shortly after his inauguration, she was shunned, she was called a heretic, she was beat up in social media, she received death threats, and her Christian faith was really called into question by a Christian nationalist president. In the same way, when a Jewish person criticizes the Israeli government for not adhering to Jewish principles, they can be called anti-Semitic, and more often, or often even called things like a self-loathing Jew. And when a progressive Hindu, like our friend Sunita Viswanath, speaks and criticizes the Hindu nationalist state in India, they can get harassed, surveyed, and threatened, and they are called not a real Hindu. So what I want to say now is that religious nationalisms employ certain common tools to further their agenda. And when you see these tools utilized in your community, your state, your nation, and world, you are seeing strong evidence that religious nationalism is behind it. So one, it's a state-sanctioned religion. Religious nationalists promote a version of one religion that supports government power and marginalizes those who believe differently. Usually the language can be found in zealously attacking the separation of church and state in favor of a Christian religion, or in the case of Israel, in favor of an all-Jewish state or an all-Hindu state. God and government are one. Religious nationalists claim that they have divine support for state policies, framing political agendas as sacred mandates. Historically speaking, the United States will talk about how back in the day they were on a mission from God to take land from and kill Native American people. This was based on the doctrine of discovery, that there was a divine calling to eviscerate the native people. Or the Israeli government is on a mission from God to take land from Palestinians and kill them to create an all-Jewish state, which is divinely mandated by God. Distorted faith. Religious nationalists employ a secular ideological use of religion, often in direct conflict with the core values of our faith traditions. In all of our faith traditions, we focus on a few core principles. Not to be exhaustive, but here are a few basics on which I think we can agree. Each person is created in the image of God and must be treated equally. Or, we are called every day to love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and we know we are loving God in that way by how we love our neighbor. Jesus held these two things together. Love of God, love of neighbor. Love of God, love of neighbor, love of God. And in our life together, we show particular concern for the poor, the dispossessed, the hungry, the immigrant, people of color, the incarcerated, the formerly incarcerated, women, people of different sexual orientations, and those who are enslaved or of a lower caste or class, or even children. So if you find yourself gritting your teeth when politicians are speaking of policies in the name of religion that defy the principles that I just mentioned, you are witnessing a government which is distorting your faith and the faith of others. They are operating as religious nationalists. Replacement theory. Immigrants and religious minorities under this theory are falsely portrayed as enemies who must be excluded, eliminated, or denied citizenship. Do you remember in Charlottesville those guys running around saying, Jews shall not replace us? That is a direct, right out of the replacement theory playbook, that somehow Jewish people are behind a larger conspiracy to challenge white power. Jews shall not replace us. And that gets extended to immigrants. It gets extended to people of color. And if you don't think that's operating, look at what happened in Texas this week. That was a deliberate move to gerrymander a state to make sure that power of minorities and immigrants would be lessened and that white dominance would be more possible. In India, we see them blocking immigrants and religious minorities by deporting them, putting them in labor camps, or denying them citizenship status. And I can't even begin to talk about the horrors that we see in Israel right now of trying to replace people to maintain a dominant Jewish power structure. Replacement theory. Erasure of history. Religious nationalists attack liberal education. They seek to censor diverse perspectives and defund institutions that challenges the government's romanticized historical narrative, which excludes marginalized and minority voices. So when you see anti-DEI initiatives, what you are seeing is an effort to rewrite history by deleting minority voices from that historical narrative. And you will see the federal government threatening to withhold funds from public schools and from universities if they portray something that embraces that diversity or offers a more textured view of history. You see the firing of faculty, the suspension of students, or denial of admission of international students, which is all part of an agenda to rewrite history. Religious-based violence. Violence is used to divinely ordain violence, militarism, home and sacred site destruction and land acquisition. We certainly see this exhibited by Israeli and Hindu nationalist governments who burn and bomb mosques and churches. and arrest and kill their leaders. Or here in the United States, we see like what happened in Charleston, when that white guy came in and shot up Mother Emanuel, all in the name of religious-based violence. Scriptural, or January 6th, there would be another one. Scriptural abuse. Religious nationalists use ancient texts to justify present-day injustice. For example, weaponizing scripture to defend exclusive territorial claims or suppress other religious groups. They will say things like, the Bible said that Israel was entitled to the land, and because it said that in scripture, that justifies their land acquisition now, even though they forgot about the part of you shall treat the stranger justly on that land that you acquired. Or in our history, we use scripture to justify slavery. Or we say that the Bible willed United States soil to Christians. It's right there in the Bible. Two more. Religious nationalists use propaganda to further their ends. So, many of us could be heard saying, the president, Donald Trump, is lying all the time. Prime Minister Netanyahu is lying all the time. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is lying all the time. They know what they are doing. This is not an oversight. They are employing an intentional propaganda strategy. And that strategy is that if you continually lie about the facts and you repeat misinformation often enough, it becomes truth and reality. Red becomes green, blue is now yellow, and you also end up using the language of the oppressed to oppress the oppressed. For example, you can set up an anti-Christian bias task force, as the president has done, which ironically will be used to go after Christians and other religious groups in the name of anti-Christian bias. You can say you defend religious freedom when what you really mean is the freedom of Christians to discriminate against other people. You can say, as a Christian Zionist, that you believe in the state of Israel, when in fact what you really want to see happen is all the Jews to be gathered up in Israel, so at the end times, those who don't convert to Christianity will burn in hell. Or you set up an anti-Semitism task force, supposedly to defend the oppressed Jewish people, while using that task force to severely attack Jewish people who criticize Israel. And if you are a Christian who happens to agree with those Jewish people, you too now are an anti-Semite. And finally, religious nationalists focus on patriarchy and control. We focus on a rigid gender hierarchy with women, LGBTQI people, and non-traditional families seen as a threat to God's order. For Christian nationalists, Jesus is the head of the church, the man is the head of the household, the wife subjugates herself to the husband, they are to have children and propagate. Women who work or might choose to have an abortion or assert control over their bodies are frowned upon. If you are gay and married, you are less than. You are deviant. If you're transgender, that's a problem. If you choose not to have children, that's also a problem. For Christian nationalists, they seek to pass laws to maintain this social order and their twisted view of Christianity, and they send in the military and ICE agents to enforce these Christian laws right here in DuPage County, and Chicago, and New York, and Washington, D.C., and places all across the country, in the quest to assert white dominance and electoral power. And have a nice day.
Thank you, Peter. No, it's not on. No? Working? I'll trade you. Thank you, Peter. And so we're going to do this because of time. I'm going to forego several of my comments connecting Zionism with, I don't want to harm this, Zionism with Hindutva, or Hindu nationalism, and because I know that my brother Rishab is going to pick up on this, and I know he won't mind if I add during Q&A a few more facts that come especially from a Christian perspective. I do want to lift up a couple of things. Number one is, because we do have a number of United Methodists in the room, the United Methodist social principles are out. So forget this says 2020, it's 2024. I want to challenge your Social Justice Committee to take a look at the new United Methodist social principles in light of religious nationalisms, whether it is Christian nationalism, or Hindu nationalism, or Zionism. How does each form of religious nationalism, what does it look like through the lens of environmental justice? What does it look like through the lens of economic justice? Gender justice, as our sister Sunita had so powerfully expressed in the video. What does it look like in terms of the relationship between church and state, religion and nations? What does it look like when it comes to the family? What does it look like when it comes to children? All of those issues are addressed in the United Methodist social principles. And so if you're interested in how to do that, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. I was blessed to work on for 10 to 12 years in the revision of that document. And so it's, I have a personal stake in our new United Methodist social principles. I want to make just a few copies, and then I'm actually really am going to turn it over to you, Rashid. So get ready to come on up. This is it. There are three things that I want to add to what Peter said. The first is there's a trinity that I see with Christian nationalism, and I think it's applicable to Hindu nationalism. I think it's applicable to Hindutva as well. Number one, it is always about an ideology. Now, some people would argue, we had a professor of Jewish studies on Sunday afternoon make the argument, religious nationalism, Zionism is its own new religion. Some would say it's truly an aberration. It is not, doesn't reflect Judaism. He made the argument that it actually is a new form of religion. So I'm still trying to discern, how do we do that? Is that true for Christian nationalism? Is it true for Hindutva? But I think we can agree that whatever it is, it is an ideology, okay? So for those who are doing this through the lens of Christian nationalism, America is identified what? As what? Christian. Yeah, absolutely. It's not indigenous. It's not traditional tribal religions. It's not Buddhism. My sister's a Buddhist in California. It's not that. It is Christian, and it's one form of Christian. It has always been Christian. It was founded as a Christian nation. That God has a particular unique relationship with the United States or America and Christians. Now, fill in the blank, because you can say the same thing for Hindutva. You can say the same thing for Zionism. Government must protect and privilege Christianity, Hindutva, Zionism. Government must fund and protect the church, the synagogue. Must protect whatever form of religious nationalism there is. Government is best led by Christians, Hindutva followers, the RSS, by Zionists. So ideology, it has to do with ideology. Second point I'll make is identity. Christians, Hindutva followers, Hindutva activists, Zionists function as an ethnic or tribal group. And this is something I hear less about. I do a lot of work on anti-racism. I do a lot of work on conflict transformation. And what I see is this notion of a new tribe that's formed. There's a difference between being a tribe and tribalism. So our sisters and brothers across Africa, I have great relationships with the United Methodists there. I go back and forth to Nigeria, especially right now because there's a lot of conflict there. We distinguish between tribes and tribalism. I would argue that religious nationalism creates a new form of tribe. And it's really a kind of tribe that's about tribalism, not tribal identity. Tribal identity can be healthy, right? You have a sense of boundaries, you have a sense of behavior, expectations, norms, yeah? There's a beautiful image that Chakravarti is going to lift up, I know, about sweeping and the need to sweep our homes. It's a brilliant image. I'm going to borrow from you for the future. Identity is always about belonging, right? So the ethics around belonging. What does it mean to belong? And then finally, the final I in this is not just ideology, it's not identity, it's also idolatry. It's a mix of the secular and the sacred in terms of practice. So Peter alluded to this. It's patriotic hymns. It's observing certain state holidays. I know churches that refuse to use certain hymns because they're nationalistic hymns. And so we have a Palestinian theologian, Lutheran theologian, who's challenging churches to really do some self-reflective work about how is it that we participate in Zionism, Christian Zionism, in a soft way. It's through our presumptions around what Israel is and who Israel is and the nation state versus the biblical boundaries of Israel. So that conflation of these two. But we do this with our hymns. We do this with our hymns. And so I know some music directors who refuse to allow certain hymns to be played anymore in churches. We do this where the flag is placed in churches. I know a bishop where after 9/11 the flag was placed over the cross, right? And he came into the church to preach. He saw this. He asked people to stand up. He asked them to sing a patriotic hymn. He took down the flag and he said, "We can now worship." He put it to the side. So we have a challenge within our own churches, within our practices, on how do we navigate church and state in terms of the images that we employ. Flags, the role of flags, the role of, for Christians, the place of a cross. Endorsing candidates with disregard to something called the Johnson laws. They were put in place to protect religious groups so that you could not endorse candidates from the pulpit. Well, friends, I think you've been following the news. You can now endorse a candidate from what? The pulpit. This has significant problems. I know some people who are prophetic Christians who say, you know what, I kind of like it. I have serious problems with it. It's something I'd love to know what you all think about that. So the other piece I want to share with you, and Peter alluded to this, is about 6 months ago, our president, he started something called the Task Force to Eradicate Anti-Christian Bias. And, you know, I love this. And I have the full text if anyone's really interested in sort of dissecting it. And what he says is, by the power vested in me as president, by the Constitution, laws of the United States, to protect religious freedom on the one hand. He's about protecting religious freedom, he's saying. To end anti-Christian weaponization of government on the other hand. So, by protecting anti-Christian weaponization of government, he's promoting religious freedom, he's arguing. So that's the argument. But then he goes on to cite who will be part of this anti-Christian bias committee, and it includes, and I kid you not, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, so it has to do with our money, doesn't it? The Secretary of Defense. So to protect Christians, which means privileging Christians, it means that we include the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Labor, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. So who gets affordable housing has to do with religious bias against Christians. Does that mean we preference certain kinds of Christians when it comes to affordable housing? The Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the Administrator of Small Business Administration. Some of you may be small business owners. What does it look like when religious nationalism seeps into how our business practices and the preferences within small business administration? President of Domestic Policy, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, So when there is a disaster that happens in Alabama or in Illinois or in Washington, D.C., who gets the preference? Because we have anti-Christian bias, don't we? And so we need to make sure that Christians are protected in the midst of a disaster, a natural disaster. These are some of the concerns I have with this new task force, which is already working on new legislation. And I'm going to end by giving you one quote that comes from the Baptist Joint Committee, which does some superb work on this. And the Baptist, I can find it, the Baptist Joint Committee has said very clearly that patriotism is about love of country. Religious nationalism is based on fear and hate. And so I think the question is, as people of faith, and I believe that we are people of faith, people who lean into faith. And I love the fact that Sherry said people who have faith in one another. What does it mean to live not out of fear and hate, but out of love? What does it mean? And so if you are interested in the connections, the implicit connections, historic connections between Hindutva and Christian nationalism and Zionism, I'm happy to give you that material. But I'm going to cede my rest of my time to my brother, Rashid. Come on up. Come on up. Thank you. Thank you. Go for it.
Thank you. Hey everyone, thank you so much again for having me here today. Before I get started, I just want to say a couple of things. I'm probably the worst public speaker in this room right now, so I will be referring to my phone, kind of drafted some remarks ahead of time. I also have a tendency to speak like there's no tomorrow, so if I do end up speaking a little bit too fast, please feel free to shout at me, yell at me. So to get started, I want to introduce you all to an organization called the Republican Hindu Coalition, or the RHC. I know Sunita talked a little bit about that, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. The RHC was founded in 2015 by Chicago businessman Shalabh Kumar, and is still based here, right here in Illinois. I think it's actually a couple of minutes away from here. It was explicitly modeled on the Republican Jewish Coalition, an organization that counted among its board of directors a man by the name of Sheldon Adelson, who once called for the U.S. to place a nuclear bomb on Tehran. On its site, RHC says its mission is to build a strong, effective, and respected Hindu-American voice in Washington. Its listed core principles are free enterprise, fiscal discipline, family values, and a firm foreign policy that combats radical Islam. Does anyone want to guess which prominent political figure in the US serves as co-chair of the Republican Hindu Coalition? Steve Bannon. This is just one example of many of how Christian nationalism, Zionism, and Hindu nationalism interconnect and materialize here in the United States. So what is Hindu nationalism or Hindutva? Hindutva, like other forms of religious nationalism, is not the same thing as Hinduism. Same way Christian nationalism is not Christianity, Judaism is not Zionism, right? Hinduism is a beautiful religion that preaches ahimsa, or nonviolence, satyagraha, or holding firmly to truth, seva, or selfless service, and vasudeva kutumbakam, or the world is one family. In fact, it is encouraged in Hinduism that one read the religious texts of other faiths and incorporate the teachings of each in their own lives. It is my personal opinion and experience more of a philosophy than a traditional religion. Hindutva is a political and cultural ideology that ties Indian identity to Hinduism, erasing the cultures and identities of Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, Christians, Buddhists, Zoroastrians, and so many other religious and ethnic identities that coexist mostly peacefully within India. The term Hindutva was coined by Vinayak D. Savarkar, a man who openly and frequently praised fascism in Germany and Hitler, and equated Indian Muslims with German Jews. While Savarkar supported the ethnic cleansing of Jews from Germany, he also supported the idea of a Jewish state. In his book, Essentials of Hindutva, Savarkar wrote, "If the Zionist dreams are ever realized, if Palestine becomes a Jewish state, it will gladden us almost as much as our Jewish friends." He believed that, like Jews, Hindus deserve their own homeland. Now let me introduce you to another one of India's less commendable productions, M.S. Golwalkar. Golwalkar was also another father of Hindutva ideology and one of the earliest leaders of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS. For those of you who don't know, the RSS is a far-right Hindu nationalist volunteer paramilitary organization, and among its many feminist productions is India's current Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He had a vision of a Hindu Rashtra, this is Sarwarkar. He had a vision of a Hindu Rashtra, or a Hindu nation that he modeled based on the reconstruction of the Jewish nation in Palestine. In Golwalkar's book, We or Our Nationhood, he wrote, and I quote, "The Jews had maintained their race, religion, culture, and language. All they wanted was a natural territory to complete their nationality. The reconstruction of the Hebrew nation in Palestine is just an affirmation of the fact that country, race, religion, culture, and language must exist unavoidably together to form a full nation idea." Hindu nationalism shares a ton of similarities with Christian nationalism. You already know a ton about Christian nationalism, so I won't mansplain too much of that to you, but I'm sure you'll see many other similarities between both ideologies as I describe their relationship. Both fuse religious identity with the political community. Hindutva's founding text defines Hindu nationhood by 3 essentials of common nation, common race, and common civilization, often tied to India as Holy Land. Like Christian nationalism, Hindutva calls for a Hindu Rashtra, a Hindu nation. Both construct the story of an idealized past. Hindu nationalists celebrate the Vedic period between 1200 and 600 BCE as a mythical golden age of spiritual, scientific, and moral perfection. Hindutva frames India's history as a continuous civilizational struggle, a glorious Hindu past disrupted by centuries of foreign occupation, Muslim rulers, the British Raj, creating a grievance-based identity. Both elevate religion as a civilizational marker, not just personal faith. Hindutva frames Hindu identity as connected to one's fatherland and Holy Land, bound by common culture and civilization. Christian nationalism similarly merges Christian identity with American or European civic culture. Both not only identify Islam as a civilizational adversary, but also converge politically around Israel. Each tells the story of a fallen nation that must be morally restored by recentering the majority's faith and history. Both mobilize fears around cultural decline, sexual freedom, LGBTQ+ rights, feminism, secular education. Despite being majorities in both of their contexts, both claim victimhood. Christians are persecuted by their own country, Hindus are endangered by Muslim minorities or secular elites. Hindutva has also disciplined cadre groups like the RSS Shakas and vigilante cow protection squads. Christian nationalism in the US doesn't have an equivalent formal cadre, but militias and groups like the Oath Keepers or Proud Boys have drawn legitimacy from a Christian nationalist worldview. Hindu nationalism uses diaspora networks in the US, UK, and elsewhere to fund and legitimize its politics in India. Christian nationalism often links itself to the global Christian persecution narratives and transnational right-wing movements in Europe and Latin America. As I said before, the Republican Hindu coalition is just one of many manifestations of the convergence between Hindutva, Christian nationalism, and Zionism. On the Hindu side, groups like the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America, VHPA, we had some of their friends visit us yesterday, and Hindu American Foundation, as well as the BJP's diaspora arm, Overseas Friends of BJP, have long operated in the US. Meanwhile, pro-Israel Jewish groups like the Republican Jewish Coalition and AIPAC have provided a template and sometimes a platform for Hindu nationalists. In fact, Indian American lobby groups explicitly modeled themselves on AIPAC. In the early 2000s, the Diaspora PAC, USIN PAC, was founded with the goal of aligning US power to Indian interests. Its founders unashamedly adopted the organizational model of AIPAC and the American Jewish Committee to gain influence in Congress. Conservative think tanks and forums have also become meeting grounds for both ideologies. The right-leaning Hudson Institute and Heritage Foundation have hosted discussions on Hindu nationalism in India-Israel ties. More overtly, the Middle East Forum, MEF, a hawkish pro-Israel anti-Islam think tank, has actively reached out to Hindutva networks. In 2016, MEF's founder Daniel Pipes traveled to Delhi to brief Indian officials on the threat of Islamists in both India and the US. In 2024, in the 2024 National Conservatism NatCon conference in Washington, D.C., A gathering of far-right intellectuals and Christian nationalists prominently included Hindu nationalist voices. Several Indian American figures like Vivek Ramaswamy and Saurabh Sharma were speakers, and 2 leaders of India's RSS and BJP, Ram Madhav and Swapan Dasgupta, were invited to showcase India's conservative success. At NatCon, Madhav openly urged that India should steer the global conservative movement, boasting of defeating leftists and Islamists at home. I mentioned earlier how Steve Bannon joined the RHC's advisory board in 2019. That same year, India's ambassador to the US made a point of meeting Bannon, tweeting a photo calling him a, quote, legendary ideologue and a dharma warrior who studies the Bhagavad Gita. In September, several Hindutva groups helped organize the Howdy Modi rally in Houston, where President Trump appeared on stage with Modi before 50,000 Indian Americans. They cross-endorsed each other, and Modi later hosted Trump in India in a Namaste Trump rally to return to favor. The bipartisan India caucus in Congress, one of the largest country caucuses, was historically championed by pro-Israel stalwarts like Representative Gary Ackerman. As early as 1999, Ackerman was calling for a, quote, greater partnership between India, Israel, and the United States against fundamentalist religious bigotry and terrorism. When Vivek Ramaswamy ran for the presidency, he ran as a Hindu who champions, quote, Judeo-Christian values, arguing that his Hindu faith shares common ground with America's biblical heritage in an effort to appeal to evangelical voters. I mentioned earlier that a shared rhetorical strategy between all 3 of these ideologies is the use of victimhood and religious freedom rhetoric. Each majority group claims that it's under assault, even in contexts where they hold power. Zionist groups label nearly all criticism of Israeli policy as anti-Semitism. Hindu nationalists have directly copied his playbook by weaponizing the term Hinduphobia to deflect criticism. You can probably conceptualize how these ideologies have manifested themselves in the form of foreign policy, counterterrorism, surveillance, immigration policy, and transnational repression. But I want to talk a little bit more about the weaponization of education and curriculum. Hindu nationalist groups have emulated Christian conservative tactics to influence curricula, much as the Christian right fights it for teaching creationism or a glorified American history. Hindutva advocates to lobby state boards, notably in Texas and California, to present Indian history in a Hindutva-friendly way. The Hindu American Foundation and allies have campaigned during textbook review processes to alter language about Hinduism and India's history. Hindu student organizations often team up with conservative Jewish groups to protest professors or courses they claim are biased, like courses on Palestine or South Asian politics that critique nationalism. This convergence in education policy is about controlling the narrative, ensuring that US students learn a version of history sympathetic to religious nationalism, whether that's the idea of America as a Christian nation, Israel as always heroic, or Hindu civilization as benevolent and tolerant compared to Muslim outsiders. The battles over school curriculum in states like California between 2016 and 2017 saw Hindu groups borrow lobbying techniques from others. For example, citing Hinduphobia as a form of hate akin to anti-Semitism to pressure officials. So here you can see all 3 forms of religious ideology, Hindu nationalism, Christian nationalism, and Zionism, are incredibly intertwined in American politics. And without intervention, without organizing, without political education, it will continue to be so. I mean, we'll continue to see the face of Hinduism in the United States be that of Vivek Ramaswamy, of Kash Patel, of Nikki Haley, of all these individuals who weaponize our faith in order to create what they deem to be progress in the US. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I know that you have another place that you need to be at, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, please. We're hoping by 8:30, we will have completed our respondents, and then we're gonna have a half hour where we're gonna be reflecting on one question. Okay, so we appreciate each of our responders.
Is this the working one? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. Hi everyone once again, my name is Garcia Wajid and I am from Naperville. I am Muslim, and first and foremost, I want to start out by thanking Peter Cook,
Neil Christie, and few others. I am not gonna butcher some of the names, that's why I'm just saying TRNP, the Religious Nationalism Project, folks, anybody that have participated has given us for organizing these events across Illinois. Thank you very much for doing that. Now, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here tonight and speak and share, not only as a member of IAMC, which stands for Indian American Muslim Council. Indian American Muslim Council was formed, is the largest US-based advocacy organization that was formed in 2002. IAMC promote common values of pluralism, tolerance, and respect for human rights. And I'm not only representing just IAMC, but I'm here as an individual who deeply believes in justice, equality, dignity, and pluralism. We are living in a time when the forces of religious nationalism are growing, not only abroad, but in our backyards. We are living here in the US. These forces seek to divide us along lines of faith, race, ethnicity, undermining the very foundations of democracy and human rights. Let me connect some of the struggles that we, across the borders. In India currently, as Rishabh mentioned, as we heard through Neil, through Peter, religious nationalism has manifested in alarming ways the marginalization of religious minorities, threats to press freedom, and violence justified in the name of faith, once again. This is not an India envisioned by Gandhi or Ambedkar. I think Pushkar really made very good statements yesterday what Ambedkar or Mahatma Gandhi had envisioned India. That's not what we're looking at. They envisioned a democratic secular republic, but one increasingly defined by exclusion. In Gaza, we see another dimension of religious and political nationalism, where innocent civilians, especially women and children, bear the heaviest burden of war and occupation. Their suffering reminds us that unchecked nationalism, when fused with militarism, devastates human lives. Uncountable deaths so far, and we have seen a lot of pictures yesterday. TRNP had done a wonderful job showing those pictures. I mean, it's hard, very hard. Here in US, the rise of Christian nationalism that again we heard through other speakers, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, threatens the pluralism that have always been this country's greatest strength. We cannot ignore the parallels across borders. Coming back to IAMC, we are committed to countering these forces of division. We do this through advocacy, education, and coalition building, working with interfaith partners, civic leaders, and communities to ensure the values of democracy, equality, and justice are upheld. Our work is about giving voice to those who are silenced, building solidarity across faiths, and standing firm against bigotry, whether it comes from the governments, movements, or individuals. And I'm not going to keep on going. I just want to close this with few bullet points that I've listed for myself to remind, not just myself, and to mention here is the antidote to religious nationalism is not silence. And it is not despair. It is, once again, solidarity. It is compassion. It is action that we take. It is speaking out when others are silent. It is showing up for each other across lines of faith and race. Shirley was, you were talking about yesterday. I loved it when you said you were at all these protests, standing with the students whenever she heard it, because she said that, I don't care if they arrest me, but I want to stand with people. And I would love to do that, and I would like people to join that. It is building communities where dignity is not conditional, but it is a birthright. Together we can ensure that the future belongs not to those who divide us, but to those who choose unity, justice, and peace. That is the vision of IAMC, IAMC stands for that, and it's a vision that I carry with me as an individual as well. Thank you, everybody.
We are going to turn it over to Jay. Where's Jay at? Jay. Thank you. And we're shifting a little bit. So you're going to hear another perspective from a student's perspective. Hold on to your questions. Please take note of them. We will have time for questions and comments. Please write down whatever questions you have.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am so humbled to have the opportunity to speak to you all, so thank you. Again, my name is Jay Romero. I am a third-year Master of Divinity student at the University of Chicago. A couple of things that I want to let you know about the University of Chicago. It is a pluralistic divinity school, so what that means is it's not a seminary that is dedicated to a specific denomination or religion, but one where many faith traditions come to study the academic study of religion. Now, what I want to talk to you about today is the implications of religious nationalism on freedom of speech in the academic context. And it's just, perfect for the University of Chicago because the University of Chicago, freedom of speech and inquiry is what makes it its identity. This is what it's made of. And it starts with William Rainey Harper. He's the first president of the university, and he established the following core principles. Number one, freedom of speech on all subjects has from the beginning been regarded as fundamental in the University of Chicago. And he wanted to make sure that nobody messed with this, so he said, principle number 2, neither now nor at any future time can this principle be called into question. So he already put some insurance on that. And the third principle is the principle of institutional neutrality. Now this was introduced a little bit later by what's known as the Calvin Report in 1967. And it stated that a university as an institution must remain neutral on issues of political or social concern. And this was happening in the midst of the Vietnam War. So this is why all of this had to be created. Now, if you can turn back time to 2024, beginning of 2024, when we saw all of the encampments in the universities across the nation, when we saw Claudine Gay and other university presidents testify before Congress, all of these elite universities look to this, the Chicago Canon, as the gold standard of academic freedom and institutional neutrality. But between October 2023 and May 2024, these principles were tested. And it was tested by the relentless student protests demanding that the university divest from its portfolio anything connected or contributing to the funding of the State of Israel. And these events climaxed when students created an encampment called the Popular University of Gaza, and that encampment was expelled 7 days later. Now at this time, a group of divinity school students, both MDivs and master students, all of Christian heritage, sat around a table and we asked each other, what are we gonna do? And it's just astounding to me because the Jewish students, after October 7, immediately organized forming U Chicago Jews for a Free Palestine. And the primarily Muslim students formed Students for Justice in Palestine. But there was a gaping hole where there should have been a collective Christian association. And the existing associations on campus were either dead silent or voiced opposition to advocacy for pro-Palestinian liberation and protest efforts. And this angered me. It took a Muslim student reaching out to the student body asking, where are the Christians, for an informal group to finally form? And although nobody believed in Christian nationalism, it just felt like we were already tainted by it. Even though we had the Chicago principles at our disposal to freely voice our educated opinion, the group was unsuccessful in publishing a unified public statement as Christians. We couldn't speak out. We couldn't agree. And since being asked to be on this panel, I've wondered, why is that? Why is it that a group of highly educated, articulate graduate students cannot seem to muster a single word against the violent actions of the State of Israel? Here's my take on that. There's a few factors that I believe surround this. And one could be that university administration, in violation of institutional neutrality, by the way, clearly favored continuing relationships and invested in Israeli technology firms, research, and academic institutions. They also hosted the Israeli State Ambassador of Education. And it was on that day that the president explicitly told him and promised him that he would make sure that the safety of Jewish students would be protected. Now, this is not a problem. However, he did not do the same for the Muslim and Palestinian students who were facing similar discrimination and similar threats to safety. So as much as our current president, Alaves Santos, wants to claim in the Wall Street Journal that we are neutral, the university is in fact not neutral in any form. Another barrier that confronted us. So with January 6th, attack on the Capitol and the rise of Christian nationalist lobbies looming in the background, the perception of Christians was fraught with negative connotations of violent religious nationalism. And so by no fault or action on our own, we were implicated in the hateful language and theology of Christian nationalism in all its forms. And I want to point to particularly the Christian premillennial theology, that is the Christian theology that believed that Christ would return at the end of the millennium, before the end of the millennium. And historians believe that this is the precursor and instigator of the Zionist ideology that anchors the belief in a Jewish state. We are complicit. And this is what I ultimately want to speak about today, how the combination of these factors led to widespread self-censoring on the part of Christian student groups who did not support the Christian Zionist agenda. And I want to say self-censored because I stated earlier, we had rights. We have policies that allow us to speak freely. And it was the personal choice of my colleagues to hesitate to speak publicly, because many of them, they were in their third year and they were going to be graduating. And they worried that the wrong thing could mean a lack of opportunities and jobs and clergy positions. Now, I am already a decade into a career in healthcare, so I was empathetic to them. These are very real concerns about the future of their livelihoods. But let me ask you this. Would the students have the same fears if the whole of American Christianity wasn't in some way misinformed or automatically pledged allegiance to another state based on a nation of its same reference in the Bible? Israel. Was this really a matter of personal choice, or was it because of a widespread belief throughout the church? For other faith traditions in the room, think about what it would mean to speak out against a state dominated by religious nationalists. Would that bar you from opportunities? And even in the secular realm, we have seen that many have lost their jobs, even in the most progressive states, because there is something about the state of Israel that is sacred. Now, these students were not looking for jobs in outright MAGA churches. These people were looking for churches to serve in here in Illinois, in Anabaptist and UCC and Disciples of Christ and even United Methodist churches. And yet they still feared a word against Israel, the state of Israel. And as we talked about earlier today, we have resolutions on this, we have social principles, but still it is normal to fear this. Why is that? And I think my question points to the root of the issue and the threat to the freedom of speech, which is deeper than just the university administration or the loss of jobs. I think it's actually more critical than that. Now, Reverend Cook talked about how the use of religious nationalism affects the use of politics, how the use of religion affects politics. But I want to also warn you that it works the other way, that using religion in politics also affects our core beliefs. And I want to highlight this by giving you a concrete example. Does anyone know about the Trump Bible? Anyone seen it? Okay. Has anybody looked at it? So one of the cool things about being a student is you can tell your library to buy any book you want. And so I told them, because I didn't want to own it, I said, can you please give me a copy of the Trump Bible? It's for research. Yes, there is. Absolutely. It's called God Bless USA Bible. You can get it for $69.99. And you can have it in pink camo and gold.
It changes every single day. Pages are.
Yes.
I heard
So
it was printed in China.
yes. So here's a couple notes about that Bible. Number one, it's just a regular Bible with the imprint of the American flag on the cover. Number two, it's the King James Version of the Bible. And it's seemingly really normal, except for if you flip all the way to the back, you have included with our biblical canon, the Declaration of Independence, God Bless the USA hymn, and only the Bill of Rights and no other amendments. Let that sit for you. Now, what strikes me about this Bible is not its flash, it's not its price, but how normal it is. I have a friend, Peter, and he looked at this Bible, and he loves Bibles, and it doesn't even have a table of contents. It is so plain, it is so normal looking. But this should scare us, because it is the normalization of these types of things that changes what the Bible means and what the Bible is in our faith tradition. By the way, in Alabama, the superintendent that's bringing back the 10 Commandments, guess which Bible he is stocking in his classrooms? And not for religious purposes, no, that's against the Constitution. He's using it to teach American civics, because now we have the Declaration of Independence in the Bible. That is the preferred textbook. And so this example just highlights what religious nationalism does to our religious symbols and the things that we hold dear, that tell us about who we are. And the point that I want to make is this, is that religious nationalism works both ways, both in the secular world and society, but also it invades our spiritual and religious world, our most precious space. And it is so pervasive. And not only that, the stain that it gives us to other faith traditions and to people around the world is a bad one. And we start negative with our neighbors. We start with our neighbors already having skepticism for us because of our faith. And so what does this mean today? It means today we need to take seriously the redefining of American Christianity and the redefining of American Christian symbols to clarify with our neighbors what we believe. Because what's out there is not what we believe. I know this. But first we need to clarify that with ourselves. We need to clarify with ourselves what the state of Israel means to us, really, truly. And then we can ask our neighbors, how can we work? How can we get you to trust that we are true, that we are loving, and that we are compassionate? Thank you.
We're writing down questions, friends. And so we are going to hear briefly, we have about 15 minutes, then we want to open it on up. And we're going to invite Carrie to, where's Carrie?
I'm here.
There she is. Jerry, to come on up and to share based on what you're hearing and what your perspective. And I just want to say just a word of appreciation for Carrie. In our planning, we're doing this in the middle of the summer, we're doing this, you all are truly the faithful to come on out. And this is not just for members of this church, this is the community. These are our Muslim siblings, these are our Jewish siblings, everyone, that you chose to come out today. So hold on to those questions, we're eager to hear comments. I just want to say appreciation to Carrie, because in the middle of our conversation, she started bringing up very personal realities. And that's what I remember. So that's what was my takeaway from our conversation, our planning. So we turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. And thank you for bringing that up, because I am not an expert. And you have heard some expert voices. By the way, if I could get your notes for later, that would be really wonderful, really rich conversations happening here. So I genuinely asked, Neil, we were doing kind of a Zoom call, and he said, would you be a respondent to this? And my initial thought was like, what do I have to offer to this conversation, right? I am in no way, shape, or form an expert here. So my time, probably brief, is not going to come from an expert opinion. It's going to come from me. I'm going to use Michelle's I statements that she brought up, because I think sometimes in the personal, we find the universal. And our stories do connect us. So I am a woman, I'm a divorced woman. I am a Christian education director in a community that proudly claims the most Christian churches per capita, that is home to Wheaton College. I am a mom. And I think that if I have one identity that I feel the strongest about, it is that I am a mom. I'm a mom to 2 kids. They were kind enough to bring us our delicious meal tonight. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So my question, as I was kind of thinking this, what do I have to say, is where have I experienced, seen, been touched by Christian nationalism or religious nationalism? And I will tell you, in every single one of the identities, being a woman, being a divorced woman, being a Christian education director, being a mom, I have been impacted. But the story I want to share is about my son. He's 15 years old, and he is very active, and he has grown up with me in the church. I mean, from the time he was little, I was serving in children's ministry, and I've just been serving throughout. So he has always seen women leading in church. My mom is a United Methodist pastor. Actually, so is my dad, so I'm raised Methodist. But he's always seen me leading in the church. So one day, my sweet 15-year-old son comes home. This is not too long ago. This is this spring, from gymnastics practice, and I can tell he is upset. And I'm like, what's up, bud? And he said, Mom, today at gymnastics practice, we were talking about faith. And all of the people on my team, it's a small team, mind you, they had 9 gymnasts. He said, all of them go to churches where women can't lead. And he said, one of them said, don't you know, it's in the Bible, women submit. Yes, that was my first, what? And then I was so, pained by it, because I could tell he was pained by it, and he didn't know how to respond. And so we talked about that, right? We spent some time with that. But it was such a meaningful and painful moment for me as his mom to sit with him in that, because I thought, dear Lord, aren't we past this? I'm naive, clearly, to think that. But it's bubbling up more and more, this voice that says, woman, submit. Get out of the pulpit. Don't you want to be a trad wife? Have you heard that term? Trad wife, trad husband. traditional, patriarchal, misogynistic, right? And this voice is coming not from the church where my sweet son is being raised, but from these little influencers, right? Social media, y'all, you know, he likes to watch NFL sports on YouTube, but you know how it's sort of the YouTube will take you down the rabbit hole, so that leads to a video, and then that leads to another video, and then suddenly there's this influencer telling him about the trad wife that he can have. And don't you want that? Because also this voice is telling him that he doesn't belong in woke culture, right? And that he can reclaim his power. And all he has to do is put down, push down, stand on the necks of anyone who looks different, sounds different, believes something different, has a different sexual orientation, has any sort of differences from him. And he comes to his mom and has to share this with me. And I think, aren't we past that? And the answer isn't just no, it's that voice is getting louder. That cacophony of influencers is growing louder and louder and telling these young men that they can reclaim their power. And it is nationalism, right? It is a power that is rooted in hatred, right? And oppression and violence. And I see it on my sweet son's face. So, I don't like to end on that kind of a note. So, I thought, so what do we do? And for me, I statements, Michelle, I think that the answer is also faith. I was reading, actually a UCC pastor today, Reverend Cook. I was reading a reflection by Reverend Cameron Trimmel, who's a pilot and a pastor and a poet and just a prophetic voice. She's very cool. You can follow her on Substack. But she wrote today on nationalism. She wrote a beautiful reflection. But this is what she says at the end. All good religion is a daily practice of kindness, fairness, generosity, and respect. It's a humility that knows the work is never finished. It is love embodied in action. For me, when I ask, how do I stop this force that is hateful, that I see bubbling up and becoming more and more permissible, I think it is by standing as love embodied in action.
Reverend White.
Thank you, sir.
So much of what's been said tonight certainly has been terrifying. But in a way, it's also not been surprising. Because as a black man, there have been folks who've been trying to erase me and others from the face of the earth. Hello. From day one. So all of these tactics, you know, you see, here we go again. I think about our last young man brilliantly spoke, everyone who's spoken so far tonight. But, you know, you were talking about, in some respects, the timidity and the silence of the Christian community. And I had to laugh to myself because 41 years of being member of what I call the Church Corporate America, Brother Christie, that being the United Methodist Church. Amen. And the realization that oftentimes, how should I say, maybe my voice was handcuffed because I had to worry about, oh my God, I'm in a predominantly white congregation that I've been appointed to. Oh my God, I live in a parsonage. Oh my God, the bishop might get mad at something that I say and might, whip my behind and appoint me to a minimum salary church, which I did have happen to me in the course of my ministry. One of the things that has really pained me so much about all that's going on right now is it still kind of gets back to what was happening on the plantations, where basically as black people we were told, using the story about Noah and the curse of Noah upon one of his children who was the Ham, who was the darkest. This narrative that particularly we as black people, God intends for us to be slaves. And I think we continue to fight within religion, organized religion, to really say that everyone should have a place at the table. I must not allow myself to become weary. None of us in this room must allow ourselves to become weary. What can we do? What can we do? I'm about to say something and I'm going to say this. Please know that I say this in love. But white sisters and brothers, some of this stuff is on you to work out. Don't call me. Call Pastor Chris. Call other persons of color, to come and, talk to us about, share your pain. And we're tired of that. We're tired of it. You all need to sit down and have a come to Jesus moment and have some serious conversations with each other. Because you know what? It's not just going to be black folk. It's not just going to be other groups of color or members of the LGBTQ community who are going to get flushed down the toilet. All of us. All of us. All of us are going to get flushed down the toilet if we don't wake up and folks say, Christians are going to say, oh, we're flushing you down the toilet in Jesus' name.
That's right.
That's all I got to say.
That's right. Thank you, my brother. Okay, Chakravarti, you're going to have the last word sort of with the respondents, and then we're opening it right on up for the remainder of our time.
Well, thank you, Neil. I have 5 minutes, so I don't know what I'm going to do.
You can do a lot.
I know. Thank you, Neil, for the trust that you have in me. I'm Chakravarti Zara, the senior pastor at First Baptist Church, Waukesha in Wisconsin. I'm so delighted to be with you at this table to hear some of the young scholars from University of Chicago. That was such an inspiring. I got my PhD in 2015 from Hyde Park. Some of my classes were at Catholic Theological Union, LSTC, is my My work was with 2010, I submitted a proposal at Lutheran School of Theology. I'm an American Baptist studying Lutheran Seminary. How wonderful is that? Got one of my courses from Garrett. I don't know what I was doing. But anyway, when I was trying to understand, I mean, India, you know, where every mainline church has a mission station in India. By the end of 19th century, 20th century has been missionary movement. And by the way, we are celebrating 264th birthday of William Carey, August 14. Oh, sorry, August 17. The man who kind of set this paradigm of mission for us, of lifting up the Great Commission, go and preach the gospel to the heathens around the world and all that, right? And that we continue to have that as a paradigm of mission, and that we continue to, is part of our influence thinking of church, no matter how hard we want to challenge that, but deep inside has been 200 years, so we are engraved to kind of think in several of these ways. However, when I am lost in my own missiological thinking, somebody said in India, you have a scholarship to go to LSTC to do a PhD in missiology, and I said, oh, that's a great opportunity, but I don't know if I was able to do one. But I thought maybe I should understand the mission paradigms, and some of the things that were central to my own experiences of being part of the Mission Church of American Baptists back in India and been ordained and been serving in the church in India. One fine day I was being quoted in one of the newspapers saying I was baptizing somebody, and therefore baptizing somebody was an offense. It's a criminal offense that can put me into risk of being imprisoned. Wow. What about William Carey talking about baptizing them in the name of Father, Son, and the Spirit? I mean, nothing was taught to me in my seminary. Now, how do you address this? And so I thought Indian church is not ready for what is coming. And so that's why I came and kind of persistently understand how the mission paradigm of the 21st century should look like for the church in India, because those days I was not thinking anything beyond India. So my proposal was about what should mission look like, and so I wanted to study Hindutva ideology, just because knowing of my own experience that going forward, Hindu nationalism is going to take over my country. When my dear professors who asked me to register myself at the political science department of University of Chicago, because seminaries don't do this, right? This Hindutva ideology and all this is not about, you want to do missions, you want a New Testament, you want an Old Testament, here we are, but not for a nationalistic ideology that you want to study in seminary. And I, maybe lack of knowledge, I said, no, I'm not interested in political science, I want to do something in seminary, missiology. So that's where I end up studying with Mark Swanson, who's a Lutheran expert in Coptic Christianity, and then also Bob Schreiter, if you know him, big man, Catholic seminary about reconciliation. So I ended up writing Mission as Reconciling Presence, a mission paradigm for 21st century in the context of Hindu nationalism. So that's how my connection to nationalism is all about. That kind of put me in several ways to study some of the significant insights that my friend kind of talked about, Hindu nationalism and all that. And then now if you see what is happening in India, we have at least 13 states in India have anti-conversion laws. So now we are in a very different world where you will be first arrested. Now you should be proving yourself that you are not in a forced conversion is what is being now put as on your side. You're already guilty, and now you go and prove yourself that you're not guilty is the paradigm that is being practiced in India. And so if you go in the social media and see even 2 of our nuns has been arrested for sex trafficking of 2 girls and forced conversion, and all that was big news in India in June 23rd. And now finally we got a bail for them. However, the harassment is that they got a bail, but they have to prove still in the code of law that they are not involving the girls who are coming to the Christian school, that they are engaging in sex trafficking, and also that they are not engaging in conversion. So the harassment that goes on is what Indian church is dealing. So how is this connected to our nationalism and nationalistic conversation is, when missionaries came to India, the conversation whether 80% of Indian Christians come from tribal and Dalit backgrounds. I mean, why did they choose to become Christian? It is because India practices a system called caste. And then the caste system during the independence time was, practicing caste was illegal and it can be, punishable offense. But now the new narrative is practicing caste is nothing wrong. That is the new narrative that you're going to see. But discrimination on the caste is the problem, not practicing the caste. So now our brother was talking about the beauty of black skin. So that goes all over. I mean, the darker the skin, the way that you are predestined to do the slavery thing. That's how for 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years, outcast communities were called unclean, denied of their identity. They were called slaves, and what kind of abuse we call them as outcasts, and all that has happened. And then when missionaries came in, they came with this gospel called you are created in the image of God. So it is that thing that kind of made these outcast communities and tribal communities to become mass conversion into something that they want to totally disassociate with. This is even today. I mean, our sister, first name Gita? Sunita. Sunita was talking about a bill on Karnataka, Devadasi's system. What is Devadasi's system? Is you as an outcast person has a privilege that you can dedicate your younger daughter to be a temple prostitute so that we caste people can enjoy her in the temple while it is called serving God. So while your family don't get to go to temple or worship God, but you have your particular subcaste as a privilege that you can dedicate your daughter. And so this is taught to us as a privilege of worshiping God. That I can dedicate my daughter so that somebody can enjoy in the temple, and she's free for anybody to serve as a temple servant. So if you want to challenge these structures, people wanted to move away from religion, disassociate with religion. And this is not about Christianity. Even before Christianity, the Sikhism is a reaction to caste system. The indigenous people have always pursued a way to get rid of caste. But the modern Hindu nationalism talks about reinstating the caste. And initially, missionaries kind of educated these outcast people that they brought education, empowerment, all these things have brought them to be a different people, rejecting the caste and embracing a bigger identity, a new form liberation. But now, after Indian independence, there was no enemy for all these things to kind of bring them together. It was the British who was a common point that all of the Hindu nationalists wanted to come together and fight against British. And that was when Savarkar has defined the Hindu national definition. But then you also mentioned Golwalkar. Well, 1960, after 20 years of independence, there was no enemy to kind of bring all these people against. And therefore, they constructed an imaginary enemy in Muslim who got first were the part of mass conversions, and then the Christians who embraced Christianity as mass converts. So now the fractured enemy are the remnant of the Muslim rulers, the remnant of colonial government, are the nation's betrayal. And therefore, the new definition from Golwalkar in terms of new state that he's talking about is there are two criteria. One is Punya Bhumi and Pitru Bhumi. Punya Bhumi means holy land, and the second is Pitru Bhumi is your fatherland. Well, all Indians who are born in India, including Dalits and Adivasis, everybody has their Pitru Bhumi, that you belong to the land as it is You born there and it's your fatherland. But for Muslims and for Christians, this is not Punya Bhumi. That means it is not your holy land. Your holy land is in Makkah. Your holy land is in Jerusalem. Therefore, in this new nationhood, you can never be patriotic. And therefore, these anti-conversion laws is, you have become unclean, and now we have set of practices to make you clean that you want to bring them back. And that is an act of conversion and anti-conversion laws. And even as of August 17, 2025, Uttarakhand has amended, it's one of the 13 states who have anti-conversion laws, is saying the new conversion laws is, if you find converting somebody, or if you are involved as a pastor or a church leader, if somebody embraces and receives a baptism to become Christian, if that person says, I am not doing this of my 100% will or whatever, and even if you say you need to prove that in the court of law, but the punishment is life imprisonment and at $11,500 US fine for making one Christian. So I'll pause there for questions. That is what we're dealing with. And so one last thing that I want to say is, as United Methodist, American Baptist, ELCA, all these churches had their global mission offices. And several of them have been for centuries involved in mission and doing overseas mission and all that. All those things have been stopped. Now you cannot send money or resources, personnel. Their visas all been rejected and all that. But what is going to happen, just 1 minute, and therefore what is happening is we are not able to do anything and the churches are silent. The churches don't know what to do. And some of these conversations that I'm having at the national level is about how do we engage this in the ministry of advocacy. And that's where I want to re-emphasize that when issues like this are happening, it saddens me to say Indian American Muslim Council is advocating for Indian Christians. Hindus for Human Rights are spending their resources in the defense of Indian Christians. If you know, 2 years back, World Parliament of Religion happened in Chicago, and there was a poster for Justice for All who talked about within 3 days, 245 churches are demolished, and that flyer was Justice for All. It's a Muslim organization, whereas American Christians and Indian Christians are all silent. And that's where we are working on National Council of Churches, and now National Council of Churches, United States in 2024, October, had a policy statement on religious nationalism. And I think in the way that this religious nationalism project is bringing this education to the congregation so that you know what is happening, you are empowered so that you continue to engage yourself, not just seeing that we can no longer send money there or we don't have personnel going there, versus how do we stand at the Capitol to advocate for religious freedom for all should be our task. And one last thing I want to say is 2024, when Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister, in June, when he came to the United States, he got the finest welcome to be at the Congress.
How do you vote? Oh, well.
Yeah, at the presidential dinner.
He had, yes, a
That
state
is-
dinner, yes.
Yeah,
a
state dinner. It happened just 1 month before Manipur. 1 month before Manipur, where 247 churches were demolished and burned, and 2 women were paraded naked after being gang raped to show as an example that if you become Christian, this is what we're going to do. And there was so much stress. There was so much stress. How would United States respond to this when Prime Minister goes in there? But the way that we were not able to do anything other than Indian American Muslim Council and Hindu for Human Rights We didn't do anything, therefore he got a nice welcome, and now even today, Prime Minister Modi never went to Manipur. And that's where our project becomes significant for us, is how do we engage in this religious nationalism project, which is coming to every church, every community, to talk about how Hindu nationalism is connected with Christian nationalism, and how is this marginalizing. And one last sentence I want to say, all these nationalistic organizations in India have an official cultural organization registered in America with 501c3. And the money that is raised here is what is making worse for the 100 years of missionary work that has happened in India. We have destroyed 200 years of missionary work in 10 years. In 10 years. And all the dollars are raised in this country, most of it. So we need to, I mean, you can Google and see Stop Funding Hate. It's a research document how these organizations are raising money publicly. And one last example is in Frisco, Texas, November 23rd, the week after the Thanksgiving, the gala that has happened in Frisco, Texas had its official flyer from Global Hindu Heritage Foundation that give us money, we're going to destroy churches for you in India. You can Google that and you will find the flyer there. So therefore, the Nationalism Project becomes very engaging for us, and that's why I'm here with them to kind of empower ourselves as churches to find new ways of engaging our ministry and mission into the ministry of advocacy so that we can stand with the suffering churches as much as we challenge the nationalism.
Thank you. Thank you, Chakravarti. One thing Chakravarti said yesterday was, in India, there's a habit of sweeping houses. You take the broom and you sweep. I grew up with that image with my mother and my father constantly sweeping the house. It's time for each of our faith communities to do some self-reflection and to start doing some sweeping, right? To sweep out the dust, to be honest and do self-reflective work on whether we identify as Jewish. We have Zionism that is influencing what it means to be Jewish, what it means to be Christian with Christian nationalism. If you're Hindu with Hindu nationalism, it's true for each of our religious traditions. So the rest of the time is yours. And there's really, I don't want to give you a guiding question. If I did give you a guiding question is, how does this impact you, religious nationalism impact you in your community? If you choose that, great. But if you have a specific question for any of the diversity of our brilliant presenters, this is your time to do it. So, yeah. And if you could make it really, kind of get right to the point with the question, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anything about any religious nationalism or religious internationalism that is positive? Or is it all negative?
So does religion, the term religion, it means to yoke. It means to bring people together, actually. That's the root of the word. But when it's nationalism, again, I distinguish between nationalism and patriotism. Patriotism is love of country, right? Nationalism is love of sort of the ethnic ethnos of the country that privileges the nation above all other nations. I think there's a distinction. So it's a good question. How would others answer this question? And I am inviting those who are presenters to first answer that, and those who are participants to answer it second.
So let's just clarify a few terms here, right? So you have a nation is a little bit separate from the state. So a nation is a group of people who are connected by a certain characteristic. So that includes ethnicity, that includes race, that includes, it could even be religion, it could be sexual orientation even. So nation isn't defined by any boundaries, it's defined by people who share a certain protected characteristic. Now when you have a nation state, that is defined as a state, a physical boundary, physical territory, in which one nation predominantly resides, right? So when you bring religious nationalism into this, nationalism is, as Neil said, a version of patriotism that is not loyalty to a state, or it's not pride in a state, but pride in that nation, right? So if you bring in religious nationalism, it's pride in it's pride dedicated to a certain people who share a religion over the people that reside in a certain state. So religious nationalism, by virtue, by definition, means that you're prioritizing people, or you're connecting yourself with people of the same religion, and prioritizing their needs over the needs of other people who reside in the same state.
So, power plus pride plus privilege for a nation is religious nationalism, right? Some similar language can be used around ethnicity and race. Ethnocentrism and ethnic privilege, or racism, power plus privilege, systemic, structured privilege is racism. And our call is to dismantle it. It's not, am I an individual racist? I participate in it, I benefit from it, but there's a system, there are systems out there that I am called to dismantle. I am called to engage in, and they are everything from economic to social to cultural. So, friends, other questions, comments?
I don't think we should make light of that question though, because I'm gonna lift to make an eye comment.
Go ahead.
When I was in Palestine, I had a US passport. I could go through any checkpoint I wanted with my passport. So when we talk about religious nationalism, right, if we're looking at, this is a country that was born from religious nationalism, yeah, there's some benefits to that, right? And I benefited from, now I made a choice. I had the choice to say, no, I wasn't gonna use that. But it was a privilege.
Of course.
And so I don't wanna make light and pretend that we don't benefit.
Okay, brief, friends.
I just propose, because our children all know each other better in terms of across ethnicity, across geography. They've got Zoom, they've got social media, and so they are increasingly cosmopolitan. So to have more care and love for children here than in Palestine makes no sense.
Right.
You know, we live on one small planet, the environment is the same, so if we don't start loving everybody, which our religions teach us to do, you know, why get hung up on a particular geography?
So I have one more comment. Remember those principles that I've laid out for you? Love God, love neighbor, everybody's created in the image of God. We have a love for the dispossessed, the poor. That could be construed as a national identity. And if you have somebody like William Barber who lays out that vision, that could be a cohesive national identity, okay? But again, that identity too comes under critique. How well is that living up to a vision? How are we doing measured against that? Yeah.
Comments, questions? Comments, questions? I know you're still with me, yes.
Maybe I don't need the microphone, it's very short. How do we follow the work that we're doing and continue?
One more time.
Sorry. How do we follow the work that you're doing and stay in touch with all of these things? Because again, there's so much information.
There's so much information. So we have a newsletter. Based on what we're learning here in Northern Illinois, we need to have a weekly sort of update on all of this. We're gonna make the videos available to you. We're gonna curate them. If we get funding, we'd love to start putting together curricula so that individuals and congregations can have this conversation and build on it. There's a lot of work that can be done. And I do appreciate people that write the books. Jim Wallace is my friend. He's in DC, I've known him since 1996. He comes and he has another book on Christian nationalism, and he was with us in Ohio about 6 months ago. But then they helicopter out. And so there's a role for those folks, but there's a role for you. What are you going to do? What are the conversations you're gonna have? And what kind of action steps will your conversations lead to? So we can stay in touch. To answer your question, we will stay in touch. We have your contact information. If you did not register online, make sure you've please given us your contact information. I have a paper that's been shared around. Where's the question? Yeah, way back
Just
there.
going back to the previous question, in terms of what...
Go ahead, please.
In terms of what benefits we may have from Christian nationalism, I think we're seeing it right here. It's people realizing what is good about Christianity and what has been corrupted. We have to have the conversations among ourselves, and we have to have the conversations with those we disagree with. But hopefully, as its concept spreads, we will eventually return to where we should be rather than where we are right now.
Excellent. Return to where we should be rather than where we are right now. Yeah, others, comments, questions? Comments, questions for anyone, anything the presenter said that still you're curious about? Just that, yeah. Oh, it's all the way on the other end again. I'm getting my steps in.
Another cookie.
I didn't go to the gym this morning, so.
Yeah, so my question is, since some of these religious nationalist groups are problematic, the younger generation, that's one of the reasons that many of them have an allergic reaction to all religion.
True.
Which, how do we grapple with this? Because of this now, people want to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Good point.
And dismiss all ancient wisdom.
Okay, any of our presenters want to comment on that? Yes.
Good point.
Very good.
So I love this question because you described essentially my story in pretty succinctly, but I'll expand upon that a little bit. So my family was relatively progressive. I grew up in a Hindu family as well. But when I looked at other people who practiced Hinduism outside of my family friends, my neighbors, etc., I would see them they'd be very religious. They'd be very profoundly religious. They'd be going to the temple every week or every month. And at the same time, I would see a version of them that espoused Islamophobia, that practiced caste-based discrimination, that used hate and vitriol to drive their lives. And that's the vision of Hinduism that I saw. My parents weren't profoundly religious themselves. They were more secular in their practice of Hinduism. But when I looked at what Hinduism looked like to me, when I saw the rise of Modi in India, when I saw the rise of the BJP in India, that's the version of Hinduism that I grew up with. That's what I saw Hinduism as, and I didn't want to be associated with that. So when I was around 12, I told my parents, you know what, I'm not Hindu, I'm agnostic. And so I moved away from Hinduism because that's what I associated Hinduism with. And I came back to Hinduism only in college when I read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time. And it's only then that I saw what Hinduism actually, obviously the Bhagavad Gita isn't the end all be all of Hinduism, but it's only after I read the Bhagavad Gita that I realized, you know what I believe in and what I'm practicing in my life is Hinduism. What these people outside of Hinduism, what these people outside in my neighborhood, in India, in my family friend circles, that's not Hinduism, that's Hindutva. And so it's because I actually looked at what Hinduism preaches, what it teaches, what it suggests for people to live their lives by, that is what drove me back to Hinduism. So what I would recommend is for those of you who have kids, obviously I'm a little bit too young to have kids right now, but for those of you who do have kids, for those of you who are concerned that your kids are moving away from religion, first of all, leave the choice up to them, right? It's up to them what they want to practice, how they want to practice it. With any of the religions that we're discussing here today, there's a myriad of different ways in which you can practice that. You can practice that without worship, you can practice that without going to a temple, or a synagogue, or a mosque, or whatever. Allow them.
Church.
No,
I'm just kidding.
It's just a joke. But allow them to practice religion how they feel it. Allow them to practice as a philosophy, as a religion, as just a way of life, etc. But also present religion to them in a way that shows the teachings of religion and not the ways in which other people are practicing religion, right? Ground the practice of religion in progressive values, in justice and fairness, in compassion and empathy, and not in nationalism and hate and vitriol.
Okay, thank you.
But we also,
before I turn,
Neil, we also have a responsibility as elders. We cannot expect our young people to believe in what we say we believe in, but don't practice. So if we really have faith, and we don't have enough courage to at least speak out, That's the beginning of it, but the rest of it is acting. And so that is the thing. Sunita, I want to be Hindu. You know, when people really are able to speak to their convictions and stand on them and move out on them, those people I freely follow.
Great, thank you. Before I turn it over to Paula, any one more question or comment from the participants, not presenters? Not presenters, not presenters.
I just want to answer.
Not presenter, brother.
Oh, okay.
Not presenter, thank you.
Thank you again. Maybe to answer this and get to a hopeful requirement here, both my kids were raised in this church.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were born in mid-'80s, which was just after the silent majority was taking root. And the silent majority is where we are now, and they're not so silent anymore. But my kids, when they were teens, became very conscious of the hypocrisy they were seeing in the religious community. Extremely, to the point where they are disaffiliated from any religion now. However, my son has gone on, he is a communications director for a large Baptist missionary group that works around the world. My daughter went into sociology. She has served for the Connecticut Voices for Children on children's issues in the government, responsible to government. And now she is working as a family therapist. So their values are our values.
Yes.
The issue is, how do we reconnect that with what we believe in terms of the church?
Thank you. I'm looking around the room because we are pretty much at time, and I'm going to turn it over to Paula, because and then I'm going to ask if Pastor Chris can close this in prayer. I am here. Chakravarti is here. Peter is here. So we don't need to rush out unless you kick us out. Okay, which is fine. Then we'll stand on the doorstep. We can talk out there. Anyone else? Any question for any of the presenters? Anything? Any piece that's totally still confusing? Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
Well, this is not so much a question because I really do want us to lead with prayer. So
Yes.
I'm just going to make a quick note, if it's
Good.
okay. Oh, you really are getting your steps in.
Oh, good.
I'm going to put a little cart over here for plates. It's just a silly announcement. If you wouldn't mind just putting your plates in the cart before you go, that would help us out. That's all. That's it.
Good announcement.
Yes.
So, Paula, I'm going to invite you to be very brief. We are past 9 o'clock.
Oh, we're
I'm
past 9
conscious
o'clock.
of it.
I'm
We are
trying to
past
be
9
really
o'clock.
fast
You have 1
on
minute.
this, but you know, I'm an attorney. I should have said that. I'm an
It's not 1
attorney, so I
minute.
can't be really fast. We're here at the Northern Illinois Conference. I'm a proud United Methodist. And the answer to the question that I think of is I tell people I am United Methodist and this is what I do. This is one of the things that we did at annual conference, right? We passed resolutions. And some of the resolutions that we passed, we heard about protecting free speech, actually. Jay talked about the need to protect free speech. We had a resolution asking people in the United Methodist Church, Northern Illinois Conference, to call on your representatives and tell them we want them to pass a bill to protect free speech, right? We passed the resolution on divestment. I think we heard somebody say, well, what can we do? Well, when you don't like what a government is doing, you divest. And there was a resolution to divest from Israeli bonds, not just Israeli bonds, but the bonds of other countries engaged in prolonged military occupation. Westpath, proud to say, if you haven't seen the press release, there's a press release, Westpath did it, but we're calling on you to take a further step because our elected officials, we have $95 million still invested in taxpayer money from Illinois. Call the treasurer, tell him you don't want your money invested in Israeli bonds. So the bishop took some action and he called on us with a group called CIOGC, right? They had a press conference on Gaza. And he issued a press release, and the press release gave us some action steps. Before we get to the action steps, we started out listing what we wanted to have happen in the guidelines for this conversation. As a church, you ought to have guidelines for how you want to take action. Be visible, be clear, be faithful. link your actions to your faith. Be courageous, because if I say something, oh, I'm afraid they'll call me anti-Semitic, so I can't say that. Oh, I'm afraid that they're going to say I'm anti-Indian, so I won't speak up against what Modi is doing. No, you have to be courageous, be collaborative. Those are some of my values that my church has. You got to have them out there, right? The other thing is to be collaborative and find your allies. So, what the bishop asked for us to do in that powerful press conference for Gaza. Oh, one other thing. Some of you know Abed Abusor, who says we don't have the luxury of despair, right? We just don't. So, select a day of fast and encourage congregants to join the fast in solidarity with the people of Gaza. That's what pastors can do, right? They can put it on us, right? On the day of the fast, ask congregants to send letters to their local and national elected officials reciting the joint statements in this press release. And make this fight to stop the starvation in Gaza the regular subject of worship services. Keep Gaza in your heart and in your mind and on your tongue. That's how we take action.
Thank you, Paula. So, thank you. On your table, you have a resource sheet. Please take it on home. We're working on it still. It's not perfect. We're going to continue to add to it. Track what we're doing, where we are. Keep in touch with us. Call us, email us. We will walk through what's happening around religious nationalisms in the United States and possibly in other countries as well. This is a growing project. This is a movement. We invite you to continue to be part of it as we continue to face off religious nationalisms. Sir, and then I'm turning, yes.
You might want to check your website.
Yes.
Because it seems to be down.
Go for it. Okay. Well, thank you for that update.
All right. Let's give Neil, Peter, and all the folks with the Religious Nationalism Project a hand. And also all of our presenters this evening, give them a hand. The Gary United Methodist Church and Society Committee, Reverend Dwight Stewart, and so many of its members. And of course, the amazing leader in the back. There you go. I call her Pastor Carrie. Thank you, Pastor Carrie. And thank all of you for coming out on this night and spending a few hours together to talk about one of the key issues that is impacting not only our nation, but as you have learned tonight, other nations around the world. I want to pick up where Carrie left off. Carrie introduced us to Reverend Cameron Trimble. And I'm going to just kind of go into the next couple of sentences to pick up where Carrie was. All good religion, as Maya Angelou reminds us, is a daily practice of kindness, fairness, generosity, and respect. It's a humility that knows the work is never finished. It is love embodied in action, not belief shouted from pulpits or legislated into law. And it is always willing to ask, who is being left out? Who is being harmed? Who is being harmed in my certainty? So I want to close with prayer with those thoughts in mind. Eternal God, we pray that you would always ask us to look out for others. Not only those who have power, but those who are religious minorities and those who have no faith tradition at all. We find the divine image in each and every person. And so we want to nurture it. We want to neighbor it. We want to be able to love that person as we love our own selves. We've been reminded that we are to love the children of this nation just as much as we love the children of Gaza, and Ukraine as much as we love our own children. And so constantly remind us of our common humanity with one another. Constantly remind us that you are a God who is powerful, that sends us out into the world to make a difference, to bring about change so that others might flourish and know that you are a God of love. And so strengthen us, give us that task, and help us to accomplish it. Send us forth from this place in peace. And may we continue to build relationships across our community, across our faith traditions. And may you receive all the glory and honor. For it is you, O God, who is the creator of us all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Go in peace.
I'm going to help Gary with all
Yep,
this.
and we can help.
I want to say thank you for driving from Milwaukee. I've heard you, more than once, and that helps me. I have some hearing loss. Anybody, or any room that has an echo. So anyway, so I'm the president of the neighborhood interfaith union, and there were several national ball run president.
Well, I mean, the facts will change when you're here, but yeah. Maybe not having a welcome right at that point. Stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm learning too. I was
Yeah, there was another person there.